welcome to the EST Hangout.
This is the EST Hangout, and today's guests are...
A good Monday morning to you. Welcome to the EST Hangout, presented by Two Hoots Hard Iced Tea, Real Brew Tea, Big Taste, Bold Refreshment. Don't just give a hoot, give two. Live on EdmontonSportsTalk.com, tune in iHeartRadio, as well as those watching on YouTube. I am Matt Iwanyk, joined by Murray McCourt from the VIP Golf Show with another edition that's available to be listened to or watched right now of the VIP Golf Show at our YouTube or on our website. Just go to EdmontonSportsTalk.com, click on shows, click on the VIP Golf Show, and boom, there it is. And joining us also the newest member of the Edmonton Sports Talk family, Reid Wilkins. Don't know if you heard the boys just trashing you right now before we were on the air.
Yeah, it was awful.
We could hear everything they were saying, and they were just making fun of you and ripping on you. No, they were saying some very nice things. I don't know if they knew that we'd be able to hear all of that.
Probably not. But thank you for having me.
Well, I'm going to have to get used to it, I guess.
Yes, you know, I will be here on a daily basis. I'm going to have to get used to seeing you and having you on here a little bit and getting used to having people here. You know what? I'm very excited. Okay, so for the news, if no one was listening to the Nielsen show a little bit ago, one, why weren't you? Two, for those that haven't been on social, or three, those who weren't at the Nasty Bash on Friday. If you haven't done any of those, the big news coming this fall to Edmonton Sports Talk, we will be live 3 to 6, Monday through Fridays with the Reid Wilkins Show with Jay Milne. Afternoon drive programming right here on EST. So very excited about this. For me, it's also just great, and Zach and I, because the morning boys usually go earlier. We'll be here throughout the afternoon a little bit, but now there's more bodies.
Yes.
There's more people around, so it's going to be great.
Yes, it should be a buzz, which is what you want when you have a job like this. You want energy. You want people around. You want conversation. You want ideas. So it'll be good.
It's going to be great. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah.
We will be live 6 to 6 programming as well. Further announcement to come for about the 1 to 3. But we'll go 6 to 6. Also some news from the Nasty Bash. Jasmine, fellow Nasty for many out there. Jasmine will be a regular contributor. She will be a regular co-host on the Hangout as well. So it's going to be exciting to have Jasmine on quite a bit on the Hangout moving forward, adding to all the great co-hosts that we have and contributors. Murray, Belzy, Gager. Jasmine's now part of that too, so it's going to be awesome. Pretty exciting to add to that.
Texting with her the other day. She is super pumped.
Were you in the same group with her at the golf classic?
I was.
You guys were in the same group.
Yeah, okay. She's so much fun.
She really is. And for those, early apologies for anyone that if I sidetrack and zone out. I've got 2 Olympic events going on my computer right now. It's the men's street final for skateboarding, and I'm waiting for the men's C1 final in the canoe slalom, which I'm very excited about.
Now, where are they doing the canoe?
In France?
Is that not weird?
Is it in the river? It looks like it's
man-made type thing.
Yeah, that's
usually
what I thought. It looks like, because they've usually done it in an actual body of water, don't they?
I feel like this event.
I ain't no canoe expert.
Well, just watch the
Olympics.
Olympics.
If you watch this, my goodness.
You just have to watch the Olympics for a few days, and they become
then you know everything about it.
I feel like with the canoe slalom, that generally is a man-made event.
Okay.
I feel like. I'm not even going to attempt where this stadium is. Oh, there's the English version of it. National Olympic Nautical Stadium of Ile-de-France.
Oh, good.
You know that place?
Yeah, it's the island of France.
Rip City Step saying Keaner's time too, Iwanyk. Yeah, because the women's basketball get going soon too, but I only have so many screens. I can't. I need
does look
screens.
interesting. I'm curious to see
Are the
what that
today?
canoe goes.
I don't think 3x3s yet.
It's not yet. Okay.
I don't think so. So we'll have to get into. We'll
you
have to watch
I'm
that one.
checked out a little bit.
Well, yeah, the two of you have not gone into the Olympics at all. You said over this weekend.
You're practicing retirement for the next month.
That is how I'm looking at it. I'm not looking at it as being unemployed for a few weeks. I'm looking at it as retirement practice, and I'm learning I'm very good at it.
Well, good.
So when we were let go of 1260 last year, we had the summer off before EST launched, and I felt the exact same way. Some people can't handle retirement. I know I'll be able to handle retirement. I'm going to enjoy the hell out of retirement when that comes.
Yeah.
Well, what did you do, though? I mean, to me, it'd be so boring.
There was some golf. There was just sleeping in. There was just going about your day, whatever you want. Like, no plans sometimes are wonderful. Oh. You just let the day flow. There was some planning of EST, so there was a little bit of work on the side. But what about you? How are you filling the days?
Well, so last week I didn't work because my last show was July 18th on Ched, and then so I've been. I'm one of those people where I don't like. I don't think I'm a clean freak, but I don't like clutter.
Okay.
In my own home or in my workspace. So I definitely there's a couple areas of my house I've set out to clean / organize. So I last week, and it actually didn't take very long once you actually do it, but it's nice to have a day where it's like, okay, I can do this and I don't have to, I have more than half an hour because then I have to run to practice or go do an interview. So I have these file folders, and I was like, these got to be cleaned out. So I think the oldest document I found in there was from 1998. So it was a combination of recycling and shredding because you find some, warranties with names and addresses and phone numbers on them. So I had a whole big black garbage bag full of shredding. And then I recycled manuals, like from a computer I got in 2004, like a big tower computer, So some people are probably thinking that's not very exciting. To me, that was thrilling. Like, I don't know if other people are like that. Like sometimes that feeling of purging a little bit, or like there's now like less stuff in my home that I'm not going to use. It is just taking up space. I love that feeling. So that was probably the highlight so far. But like you, Matt, and I agree with you, Murray. The prospect of being like I'm actually retired, like I'm likely never to work again. Yes, I think that's an adjustment. But this is kind of like almost a summer vacation from school for me. Like, when
was the last time you had that summer off?
Well, I'm very lucky to have that. And I've talked about that with people in the past. When you talk about work and work life and all that kind of stuff, and I remember having this conversation with a buddy a few years ago. It's like, wouldn't it be nice if, like, just in your late 40s or early 50s, you just got like a summer off, like you used to in school, or you got 3 months off, so you knew you had a job, or you were going back to the same job. I'm very lucky because I'm kind of getting to do that. I mean, as I was just talking about with Dustin, I'm leaving a job, but I know I have something else. So, I'll be hanging. I'll be like you said. I'll be doing some work to get ready for the show with Jay in the fall. But I'll just kind of. I think I will take some days. Just don't plan anything. Just take it as it comes. But I'm meeting somebody for lunch after this. I gotta actually. I don't know if I'm playing Panoka on Wednesday for the first time.
That's a good course.
Okay,
You'll enjoy
it's
that.
actually my first round of the summer. I'll have to get out and play at your place. But just kind of doing stuff like that, catching up. And the thing I'm most looking forward to is hopefully seeing some friends, like the people you never see, a lot of them in broadcasting, because your schedules just don't jive. Especially with me, the show was until 8, working Oilers. Somebody else, was on a morning show. Well, when are you going to get together? Like, you can't. So just hoping to meet some people for lunch or coffee or a beer and just reconnect. I'm looking forward to all that kind of stuff. I'm not traveling. Everybody says to me, "Are you going to travel?" And I was like, I never even thought about that. Like, I was doing hockey until June 24th. And then it's like, okay, I then, I resigned from Ched June 26th. And then it was like, okay, what's going to happen? Nailing things down with Dustin. And then it's like, okay, the last week at Ched was, somewhat emotional and busy, and a lot of people questions, all that kind of stuff. And then people are like, well, what are you going to do now? I was like, I never even thought about that. Like, I just knew there'd be this gap, but I never thought to plan something extravagant or to take a trip or something.
Because who wants to leave Edmonton in the summer?
Well, that's
or Alberta in the summer in general. Like, we go through an entire winter of just crap, and then our summers are so beautiful. And I feel like this is the time you want to enjoy Alberta and Edmonton and stuff. And so that's partly why, to me, it's like, why rush out of here type?
Sorry, Murray, I'm talking
we just got there though. Like, June was horrendous for weather here, but we're in. It's
gonna stay nice here.
Yeah, it's gonna be good for a while now.
We will get to the Elks. Don't worry, because I need to gloat a little bit. I'm taking a little bit of a victory lap at some point today. Murray wants to get mad and rant, so there's a lot to get to there. We will get to that. I do quickly, just talking about the summer vacation and adults. It was funny because last year I was at a buddy's place. Eric and I and a few others were there, and like 7 of 8 of us weren't working for the summer. all for various reasons. Paternity leave, maternity leave. Eric and I were waiting for EST and stuff. So like, it was one of those, like, all of us basically had a summer vacation. It was so weird. Like, we're all in our 30s. And we all just managed to have, not because, you know, we were all laid off and we were still looking for a job or something. It just worked out and it was very lovely. Again, I do highly recommend the summer vacation for
if you can do it.
Do it.
Yeah.
Before we get to the Elks and all that, and we actually got to talk a little bit of Jasper at some point because you had an experience. You were evacuated.
Yeah, I was
from
there.
Jasper,
Yeah,
so we'll
that
get
was
to
crazy.
that. But we have Reid in here, and the one thing that's the beauty of the Hangout is we could go a little deeper into things that are happening. And I know you're on with the morning boys, but you have left a great station in 630 Ched. You've come now here to join us at Edmonton Sports Talk moving forward. As we mentioned, the Reid Wilkins Show with Jay Milne coming Monday through Fridays, 3 to 6 in the fall. I guess partly, why come join us? We'll start there.
Well, you really want me to dive into this? Because I can.
Well, do you want to start with why come join us, or do you want to start with why go for this change? Why take this? Why in this moment of your career go for a change and leave Ched?
You know, it's interesting because even Murray, when I saw him when I walked in today, Murray said, "Was it a tough decision?" And I was like, "No, it wasn't." But it's also not as simple to say that it was an easy decision. Like it is a change. I guess I can kind of pull back the curtain a little bit here. I don't think there's a problem doing that. I mean, last July, well, if we can go back to one of the worst days of my career, it was last July when the changes were made at Ched. And it was a couple days. I remember this in the context of games that were going on. It was a couple days before the Elks lost that game in Saskatchewan on the Rouge on the kickoff.
The 9-point swing out of nowhere.
So just because there's been a lot of like, why is your show an hour? Like, what happened? All that kind of stuff. And I've never really told this part publicly. So, kind of to sum up how the management structure was working at Ched. I mean, Sid Smith, who you guys know I loved and respected, retired in, I think, October of 2020.
It's been that long.
So basically, my boss at Ched and the guy who kind of would have been the titles were different, but sort of the Ched program director was a guy based in Calgary who was running a couple core stations in Calgary, and then at Ched and Global News Radio at 80. And, we got these emails, I think in June, hey, I'm coming up in July. I want to do a bunch of one-on-ones and catch up with people. So, fill in when you can talk. So he was up for 3 or 4 days. So I have my meeting with him, and I go into the room thinking, okay, this is just a check-in, how are things going? And so he was there with kind of my Edmonton-based boss, who was, kind of a notch below him in terms of authority. And so this gentleman from Calgary had said for many years that he didn't like Oilers Now with Bob Stauffer at noon to 2. That he didn't,
in the time slot.
In that time slot. He didn't think, he liked the show.
Yeah.
He didn't want to get rid of the show, but he didn't like it at noon to 2. He thought it was a momentum killer, whatever. I don't know what all his reasons were. And he kind of brought that up, but nothing had ever changed. So I get called into this meeting thinking, okay, it'll be fairly casual, chat, BS, catch up. Like I didn't have any grievances or I didn't have a scroll to talk about anything. So I sat down and he said, well, as you know, I've been trying to get Oilers Now out of noon to 2. So starting in September, Oilers Now is going to be 5 to 7. And you're going to be an afternoon sports reader and sort of, can't remember the term he used, but kind of a chat person for Chelsea in the afternoon. And he stops talking. And I'm like, okay. So, you got a few seconds to process all this. And obviously I knew I wasn't laid off because I was on the afternoon show, but okay, Oilers Now is 5 to 7. Inside Sports was 6 to 8. So I kind of take a few seconds. I'm like, oh, okay. So what's going on with Inside Sports? Well, it's going to be 7 to 8. Okay. And I was like, so now I'm thinking a lot of Oilers games start at 7. So in my mind, I'm like, oh, is the face-off show being replaced by Oilers Now that'll serve as a pregame show? So I was like, what's happening to the face-off show? He goes, it'll still be 90 minutes before every hockey game. Oh, okay. So then I'm like, so Oilers Now will not be on game days? No, it'll be 90 minutes before the face-off show. Okay, so 7 o'clock game, Oilers Now is at 4 to 5:30. And then, yeah, see, Murray, and that was the reaction from a lot of employees. So it was like, okay.
I programmed 1260. Even in my mind, when that was happening, it was like, that's very convoluted and confusing.
So whatever. So I remember that meeting thinking very much like, I just don't like this. This doesn't feel good. And I kind of asked a few questions. I was very non-emotional, just kind of tried to clarify as much as I could. And then I was like, okay, thanks for telling me. So I go back to my desk, and Brendan Escott is there, and he hadn't had his meeting yet. And you know what it's like after you meet with your boss. Hey, you still got a job? You know, so I go, and he's like, so you still got a job? And I remember saying, yep, but not exactly the same one. And he's like, oh no. And I was like, I know your meeting's in half an hour, man. I'll leave it alone. You can find out. So then throughout that afternoon, I got a couple of texts from colleagues saying, how you feeling? So I was one of the last people to have this one-on-one meeting. They've been going on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Mine was Wednesday afternoon. So other people in the building knew about these changes and my show being shortened up to 2 days before I did, including some people who I would think didn't need to know because they didn't work on my show, weren't in that day part, and certainly weren't the host of that show. So I wasn't happy with that. I didn't think that was a great way to roll it out. So you know, the two guys I met with said, well, you know, if you want to chat more, let us know. So I emailed them and said, I want to talk to you guys. So I got another meeting the next day, and I was pretty blunt that I didn't like not being, I guess, included in this process or asked about. I said, like, even if this show is going to go down to an hour, I respect you're the boss and you're making the decision, but there's a whole bunch of things I could have contributed or questions I could have asked or things I could have said, well, what about this? What about this? That maybe we would have known ahead of time, as opposed to like, now we're going to deal with all these things on the fly. And I remember the Calgary-based boss said, well, if I would have told you a month ago, you just would have been upset a month earlier. And then I brought up, why did these other people know about it before I was told about it? And he did concede on that point that was probably a mistake. But I was pretty blunt. It wasn't well received. I was definitely told that I would need to adjust my attitude and show more buy-in and be a good leader for other people. There were a couple other meetings with this individual that had a lot of friction, centered around this and some other things. But I kind of didn't really ever back down on how I thought it was handled, and I didn't think, and I brought up, I said, okay, 2 weeks ago, 1260 shut down, and so now there's Bob and there's me. Bob's an Oilers show. Yes, my show is a lot of Oilers, but I was the show that would do a lot of other stuff, tell a lot of stories, feature other people. Isn't this our opportunity now to capitalize more on what Inside Sports is doing? And I was basically told, no, 1260 shut down because sports radio doesn't sell. And I was like, okay, well, not with that attitude, it won't.
Wow. Well, I'll speak to that part, because the moment that we heard Bob was leaving noon to 2, we're off the air and we're like, this is perfect. You've opened up the table for us here at EST, and also 1440 with the guys doing over there. You opened it up for us because you're saying from mornings to afternoons there is no sports. You have to now retrain all the sports fans in this city. Completely have to be retrained with how to go get their sports.
Yeah.
If Bob is still there noon to 2, people then are like all going, okay, well, the place to get sports during the day is noon to 2 with Bob, which then leads nicely because they're already on Chad. and that will lead into, okay, if I get through the afternoons there, Reid's on with Inside Sports. So I don't need to go looking for other things. Like EST could not survive if 1260 stayed. If 1260, if they just fired us but kept the sports station, ran ESPN all day, it'd be a lot harder to drag people over here. Yeah. But what happened was 1260 went away, and then they took Bob off, and it was just, you're now telling the city of Edmonton, relearn how to forget your sports.
Yeah,
and so it was one like, thank you to us over here. That was an awful, like in my mind, noon to 2 would have you guys would have dominated even more as Ched. Like you guys already had great numbers for certain things, but sports-wise, you could have really now been the sports station.
Well, and here's part of the frustration for me, and I think that Matthew, you'll understand this from having worked in media, and I think Murray, you'll understand this just from being a logical, reasonable human being,
a businessman too.
The issue, not just with what happened with Ched with these decisions, because it was a Calgary-based guy and a Vancouver-based guy that were behind this. And this is happening in media across the country, is that the people making key decisions in markets don't live in those markets.
So, I know every market is very different.
And every market is different. And I think Edmonton is a very special sports city because, yes, the Oilers rule. And we saw what the playoffs were like. But Edmonton fans want to, the Elks are still very important. People will talk about the U of A. They will talk about the Oil Kings. The Oil Kings set attendance records. The Riverhawks set attendance records. Now, people don't live or die on the wins or losses as much. But I remember a few years ago, the Dinos and the Golden Bears were 1-2 in men's hockey, not just in Canada West, in the national rankings. And they were playing that coming weekend. Bob and I had a guest on our show every day leading up to the series. And I was talking to Steinberg in Calgary. I was like, that's pretty cool. That it's like, you guys must be talking about it. He's like, no, we don't talk about it. He's like, it doesn't move the needle. And I was like, Dinos hockey being number 1 in the country and playing the Bears. He's like, no, like people aren't that interested. But here, they're interested.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll go with 2 examples of the different marketplaces between Edmonton and Calgary and also the country. I remember for years, I had access to the radio numbers, the numerous. Mm-hmm. I would look at trade deadline days, and I would look at the share percent, and I don't want to bog down too into the minutiae of how it is. The top 2 stations, and it wasn't even close, for trade deadline coverage in this country. Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, Toronto, Montreal. Is that it? Just those 5 I know. I could only access those 5. It was 1260 and Ched. It wasn't even close. Wow. Mm-hmm. The top 2 in this market, they were the same market. But the listenership of this city was massive on trade deadline. Everywhere else, it was a lot softer. Mm-hmm. It wasn't even close. 1-2, 1260 Ched, whatever order you want to put them in those days. And that, to me, always said, that is why sports in Edmonton, it's different here. Yeah. Also, at one point, working at the old place, Virgin Radio is in Calgary and in Edmonton. And Virgin in Calgary does extremely well. Edmonton, it's had its struggles at times. At one point, they put on because the one evening show in Calgary was doing so well, they simulcasted here in Edmonton. And it was like, this isn't going to go well. And it only lasted a couple months because Calgary's different than Edmonton. What the Calgary listener wants is not the same as what the Edmonton listener wants, and vice versa. And it's just, but you're right, it's decisions that are made everywhere else. Yeah. And it's never done locally.
Yeah. Yeah. And that continues. And I think, unfortunately, that's going to continue to be an issue for stations across the country. And we're seeing stuff happen. And look, of course, I said this with Dustin, so I actually resigned 2 days after Game 7. So that's when I thought, okay, I got to really now dive into making something work with the EST. And it wasn't public for a while, and it wasn't even announced internally for about a week and a half. So then when it got sent out internally, then I started getting colleagues like, didn't realize you were one of the people let go. Well, no, I wasn't. It's just that this is the weird timing. I've got an end date. This is my decision. But it's tough. And then to make even more odd about all this, like I said, there were kind of 2 guys at the helm of making this call. So the guy in Vancouver was done with Chorus by Christmas. Now, he also had some health issues, so I don't know the full story there. But the Calgary guy, and the one I really clashed with at times, he retired the same day I quit. So the 2 guys who made the decision, no longer with Chorus. And quite frankly, bit of a scoop here. I think Inside Sports will return to 2 hours in the fall, and I advocated for that on my final show, and I'm happy to hear that. I mean, it like a 1 hour show is like, for the format we had, did not work well. Like I wasn't overly thrilled to do that length.
You used to do an hour show.
Yeah, it's not like when I look back at my show, it's 2 hours now.
Yes.
I try to figure out how in the heck did I do this in an hour?
Right.
Because you just can't really do it justice. Your guests, you're not really diving into them as deeply as maybe you could or should and whatnot. So yeah, it just doesn't make any sense for it to be an hour. But you know what? Well, the one biggest point that you hit home with is, and you know, we all battled this with the situation with TSN 1260 was this decisions getting made elsewhere. Well, you're in the right spot now, as I am with my show, because the decisions all get made by a very small group of people that we're kind of all part of, and it's like this is just a perfect spot to be in the media world in Edmonton, because the culture and everything that EST is, the listenership is just like you experienced it. I listened to you on Dusty's show this morning. The listenership here is so loyal and so passionate, and it's just amazing to be part of. And so you're not ever gonna regret this move.
No, I won't. And that's what's exciting to me is my boss does the same job I do, basically, just at a different time of day. And I'm going to see him every day, and he understands what I'm doing and the market and stuff like that. But so that's kind of the short version. I know that probably sounds like I'm sure there's some people sitting there, but yeah, Reid, like my boss tells me stuff I don't like all the time. Yeah, so true. It happened to me too. But what's the old thing? If you don't like it, quit. Well, I was in the I was in the rare case where I actually could quit. As you heard me telling Dustin, I had an opportunity to do something really cool, so I took it.
Well, it's not even also you had to do something different. You got demoted largely. When you're getting taken off the air of your own show and then being added as a second on a show, you could view that a little bit as a demotion.
I felt a little, and I felt a little neutered with Inside Sports, because of course the Oilers stuff. Hosting the Oilers broadcast is big, obviously. I got to work with great people. The fun thing for me is though, like, I'm still gonna be in touch with all my friends at Ched. Like, I'm not leaving angry at anybody there, so I'm pretty lucky. But that was the big thing to me. Like, and then I had like this gap in my day because I would be on until 5, and then I was.
You're not on until 7.
And then the gap was 4 to 7 during the playoffs because Bob was doing 3 hours, and like you were saying, Maria, I'm sitting there and I got all this energy and stuff I want to do, and I'm just waiting to do a show that's only an hour. So yeah, I think we felt, Dave and I, who was producing the show, still is producing the show, like we felt a little neutered with the show, and we noticed, throughout the winter, we didn't talk as much CFL in the fall. We didn't talk as much U of A. We didn't talk as much Oil Kings. We didn't find, we heard there's this high school kid that's boxing. Let's have him on. Like, we're missing out on all those things. So that's what I'm looking forward to, is this show is telling a lot of those great local stories again.
That's what I was going to ask, is what different plans do you have for this show compared to what you were doing with Inside Sports? And that's kind of the answer, is more local stuff. And
I just think there's nothing like a great story. And people want to know what's going on in this market, and that includes the reach outside of Edmonton that we have. I don't think, I'm not going to change. Dusty wanted me here because I think he likes what I was doing. So I don't think he's thinking I'm going to come in here and be a completely different host. My tone, my approach, my personality on air is going to be the same. Of course, it'll evolve as I grow and get more experience. But I'm looking forward to having a rapport with Jay and seeing how our conversations are going to go. I think some listeners I'll be familiar with. I think there'll be some other ones that I'll get to know and how they're going to participate. So I look at it as build on what I've been doing, and the people I know and the connections I have and the way I deliver, and then grow with these guys, grow with Jay. Like, it's just such a super exciting opportunity.
Well, and you had did Inside Sports for a number of years. It had a massive following. That following is going to follow you over here, like it did with my show, and it did with Dusty's show, and everything like that. So it's just going to grow.
Well, since the announcement on socials that we posted, I've seen a lot of on Twitter and Instagram just new followers.
Yeah.
New people.
Oh, good.
And it's like, oh, well, people see the news from Reid, and they're now saying, oh, that's where Reid's going, and oh, what's this place? And
exactly,
because the one thing about Edmonton Sports Talk, I'm very impressed by the numbers that we've had. It's been an unbelievable first year, better than I would have ever imagined. But also, there's a lot of people that still don't know what EST is, and that's going to be a message we're going to have to keep pummeling out there for years to come. People didn't know what 1260 was till the last day. We weren't the biggest station overall. And that's something that we always have to keep throwing out there. But it's nice when people do find us and go, oh, that's where Reid is. Oh, that's where Dusty and Eric are. Yep, that's where they are. So come join us. And I'm actually really excited about the show that you and Jay are going to do, because it's for us at EST, as I think of it, like, we don't have that traditional radio at the moment on our station. Dusty and Eric do an amazing morning show. They do amazing sports. They can get on sports, but they mix in the entertainment with it, which is what morning radio needs to be. Too many people on sports radio, over the years, they try to make it just two sports. Eric and Dusty, you're competing with Edmonton. For those that don't know, I think it would still be the case, although we're losing 880 and we lost 1260. So I'm assuming it's still the case. It's actually the most competitive radio market in North America. We have more radio stations per capita than anywhere else.
Yes.
It is the most competitive. So you're going up, when you're in the morning slot, that is the slot, and you're going up against other very creative people. You can't think always sports. So they do a great job of mixing entertainment and sports together. This show is whatever it is, any given day. It could go all over the place. So it's not always diving into the biggest, breaking news or something like that from the basketball world or whatever it might be. Lock Shop does its show. Then we have an Oilers show. But we don't have that show that can go and will go everywhere. That is going to look at what are the stories, all the stories of the day, and dive into it, both locally, nationally, and internationally. And that's what you and Jay will, bring to the table here, which is, it's nice to add that to EST, because I think that was just the one thing that we're kind of missing here, is that, okay, it's Thursday night, Jags taking on the Titans. Maybe we'll talk about the Thursday nighter that's coming up that night. We're not doing that anywhere else on this station right now. Golden Bears taking on the Dinos. We might discuss it on the Hangout, or but maybe having somebody on all week leading up to it. That's what I'm excited about the Reid Wilkins show with Jay Mill.
Yeah, me too. I it's going to be awesome. I'm going to love that time slot. That'll be a little different for me, but and I can already tell Jay and I are going to get along very well and have a lot of fun and a lot of good discussions. And again, just tell. I mean, like you said, Matthew, news of the day, and then great, local stories. What's going on? Who's doing what? Who's inspirational? And I do really believe in that. Everybody likes to know something great is happening in their community. Of course, Oilers are the headline, but who's the star golfer? I still remember one of the best interviews I ever did. There was this 12-year-old, I can't remember what, I wish I could remember the names. This was a long time ago. There was this 12-year-old girl who was boxing at a national level. And I had her and her dad on at the same time. Wow. So it wasn't just okay, what do you like about boxing and why are you good at it? It was also to the dad, you're comfortable letting your kid box at this age, right? All those different angles to it. That was still one of my favorite segments.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, it's also very nice. It's for us here at EST, for somebody as established in the city to believe in what we're doing. Actually, the two guys who believed in us, I think, the most. You were the first one to jump on board with EST with your VIP golf show, which we were extremely grateful for last summer. Before we even were on the air, you were jumping on board with us, and then you jumping to us as well, a big name coming here to us. And for us, those are two big things for us that has happened in back-to-back summers, where it's wow, people believe in us, and we're extremely appreciative of both of you for that. Yeah. So thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for this last year.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Very much looking forward to year 2 of Edmonton Sports Talk. We're still not there just yet, but the announcements are coming. And as mentioned, we had somebody, Gord, saying, did I miss the 1 to 3 slot announcement, or are we just waiting for other people to fill that spot? No, don't worry. We will have a 1 to 3 announcement. We haven't announced it yet. We're actually still working on it, though. Legitimately, we're still trying to figure out what we're going to do.
It's going to be a Law and Order spinoff, everybody.
Oh, my God. How much fun would that be?
A Law and Order spin-off.
Eric used to go home and watch a lot of Law and Order. I remember for a period of time. I would get into kicks of Law and Order every so often.
It was a good show.
Now, Law and Order or SVU?
Law and Order. Wasn't there another one? Haven't there been like 3 or 4? Criminal
was.
Intent? Is that theirs?
Yeah, that's right.
That was
yeah.
a late one, wasn't it? Or was that the third one that got added? Because then there was one that Lenny from the regular Law and Order, he went to, but he passed away in the early episodes of that. I forgot what that one was. And then
is that Jerry Orbach?
Yes.
Okay.
Who was the best?
Yes.
And then there was the new one that they added with the guy from SVU who left for many years, and then he came back and he did like a gang version one.
Oh, really?
That was just recently.
Yeah, see, I was just...
There's a bunch of them. Now there's Law and Order Toronto.
I just thought it would be...
That is a Canadian production,
Oh, yes,
I think,
that's
though.
right.
I haven't
Yeah.
watched a single one of that
Yeah, I
one.
haven't seen that either.
So,
You know, we were talking earlier about this Canadian skateboarder.
yeah. How did he
just
do?
fell again. Like, how did this guy make the Olympics? I don't get it. He just he can't
it's
stay on.
nerves.
Yeah,
Maybe he's trying too hard. Maybe he's going for too much. I don't see his score there. It's the men's street final at skateboarding at the Paris Olympics. So I've always loved that event. The Brazilians up next, and we got the canoe slalom going right now.
Well, that's actually been pretty cool. I've
Isn't
been
it?
watching that, and it's like, oh yeah, I don't know, a man-made little water thing there that we were talking about earlier. I don't know. That's pretty good whitewater canoeing right there in a man-made pool, if that's what it is.
Oh, they got like little rapids and stuff
that's
and everything.
That's really,
It's awesome.
really cool.
Just trying to see if we have a lot of congratulations coming and welcome to you.
Well, thanks.
Reid.
So I appreciate that.
We'll have to actually. Oh, now I got to actually do that. That is another thing I got to do. I got to get you access to all of our stuff. So
Yes, please do.
That's a future thing because
I had to break in this morning to get in.
Was the door locked?
I kicked the door down.
Yeah.
No, it was unlocked.
Oh, okay. Well, one of the doors sometimes is locked. It's actually on my to-do list.
I think
to
I'm
get
going to
you.
be. I would be least likely to kick a door down. By the way, so
Well, but also at the 3 to 6 slot, the door is going to always be. Well, you might have to lock it though.
You got to lock it.
You gotta
Somebody's got to
lock
lock it on the way out.
Yeah.
okay.
That's going to be the thing, unless there's pregame that night.
All
Tommy's
right,
in the
but
studio.
we'll be the last to leave.
On a regular day, you guys will be
We're
the
on a
last to
regular
leave.
day.
Unless somebody, no, you guys will have to. I'll have to go through the protocol
Yeah,
with
well, I
you.
think I'll be able to figure it out.
Lock the door. Set the alarm. Pretty easy. You can handle that.
Probably.
Yeah.
Well, but he'll also have 2 other people. So that between the 3 of you,
Somebody will lock
one
the
of
door.
you should be able
Last
to figure
person
this out
lock
per
the
day.
door. Yes.
I'm thinking.
Last person
I'm
out.
hoping so. This is the EST Hangout presented by Two Hoots Hard Iced Tea, live on your clear choice for Edmonton Sports, Edmonton Sports Talk, Matt Iwanyk, Murray McCourt, Reid Wilkins with you here. Again, the Reid Wilkins Show with Jay Milne coming this September 3 to 6, Monday through Friday, right here on Edmonton Sports Talk. And the other announcement from the Nasty Bash on Friday was Jasmine will be a regular co-host on the EST Hangout. How was the Nasty Bash for you, by the way? Anyways,
The word I use is overwhelming, in a good way. I didn't really know what to expect.
It's different.
And I guess I kind of went in without a lot of expectations. But I mean, I'd never been to the St. Albert Rugby Club,
Isn't it wonderful?
so it was very cool. Like I
Now
didn't
imagine
know.
when it's a nice, like a hotter day out with the sun and that patio.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Beautiful
Though
patio.
I'm glad it was cool outside because I needed a reprieve from the mascot costume.
Smash.
Smash. Sorry, but it was. Everybody was so welcoming. Everybody was so excited. Dustin and I talked about my parents being there. Like that was a thrill. One of my best friends came as well, so that was really
Former
nice.
employee of the old place, and she worked with me on
that's right.
1260. She was my traffic girl.
Yeah,
Oh,
Lori,
cool.
it was great.
yeah. So it
I haven't
was.
seen her in a long time.
It was just it was a really cool night, and obviously there were some people there who had listened to me on Ched, but I had never really seen in person. I mean, Norman at Combine, Nate in Vegas was there, so I was like, I'm actually
Nate in Vegas was there?
Yes,
Did I say hi to him?
I don't know,
I don't know.
but it was.
You know him?
There's just so many
Yeah, there's so many.
so many people.
I just wish. I mean, I could have had more time to like talk to Jasmine, for example. Corey was there, Majot was there. I mean, I
Yeah.
hadn't seen those guys in a while, but I'm glad I kind of got to talk to a lot of people and say hi. But everybody was so welcoming. I said to Dustin, I really just thought it would be okay. Here's Jay, here's Jasmine, here's Reid. polite applause and everybody goes back. But like all the chanting and the cheering, I was like, wow, people are really excited.
Yeah.
This is really cool. And I said this to a lot of people on Friday that it was different for me because so much of my job, now different with Overtime Open Line have been in Studio 99 for the last few years and what it was like in the playoffs, but a lot of the job is I'm alone in a room.
Yeah.
Or there's one other person with me and the operator is there as well.
Did you do the post game from the Oilodrome at Rexall?
Yes.
Yeah, I did that too. Okay.
Yeah, so I guess, but there was that.
No, I know it's a little
there.
different spot. It's not the same. I just didn't know.
That was so long ago. And then the first couple of years in Rogers Place, we were in the press box the whole time, and then they opened Studio 99, and we were in there, which, by the way, was incredible during the playoffs.
I can imagine.
I mean, what an environment, after Game 6 and when they eliminated Dallas, like people just so excited and chanting, "Let's go Oilers!" and you look out into Fort Hall and it's still light out. Like it was that was pretty amazing to get to experience that for sure. But the bash was. It was a bash. I mean, it was an absolute bash. It was just a fun time, positive time with a bunch of enthusiastic people. It's very cool.
It's the second of 4 signature events on the calendar for EST.
Oh my!
Golf Tournament was the first. Nasty Bash is 2. 3 is going to be the ESTs in September, which you're still trying to wrap your head around what the
heck
ESTs are.
Yeah. Am I on the invite list to the ESTs?
Of course.
Okay, good.
Of course.
See this. What's the fourth one?
That was what I want to do. And well, it's not I want to do. We're going to do it because I will just set my mind to it. And if I say it on there that it's happening, it has to happen. A curling bonspiel in January.
Oh, wow.
That's the goal. Just in the Saturday night or something, curling bonspiel or something. That is the 4th signature event. That is our 4 majors of EST.
Nice.
We did Super Bowl party at Century Casino last year. That would be almost my Players' Championship. The 5th major, the unspoken 5th major, not officially the 5th major, but that would be my, players of it all. So, but we have our 4 majors, which is golf tournament, Nasty Bash, Estes, and the curling bonspiel, if I can get that done. So we have 2 more to go to accomplish. We didn't do curling this year. So I guess this calendar, we're only going to get 3 done. But then moving forward to next year, it's going to be 4.
That's pretty good.
It's going to be absolutely wild. It's going to be insane.
You know that I have some pretty good friends in the curling world, so I might put a little ringer team together for that one.
I might have to start you guys at -5 points.
No.
Like
you're gonna bring Card Martin.
Hey, we're at 0. And also today they officially appealed. The Canadian Olympic Committee and Canada Soccer officially appealing
They
that.
will lose the appeal.
But if they go beat Colombia, they're through.
What? I thought they had the 6-point penalty was enough
0.
that they couldn't make
they're at 0 points. Colombia's at 3. France is at 3. New Zealand's at 0. Logically, France, as Tommy wants me to say, will beat New Zealand likely, or if there's a draw. Heck, even if New Zealand draws, how would that mess with it? Well, if New Zealand wins, France would be at 3 points. New Zealand would be at 3 points. If Canada wins, they're at 3 points, and Colombia would be at 3 points. But Canada's at a +2 goal differential right now. If they beat Colombia,
so they'd actually get as the 2nd place team, not as a 3rd place team.
They could, in theory, get 1st place still of the group.
Wow.
Because their +2 goal differential, I think they're better than anyone else. If they win, because they have to win for this to happen, their goal differential would be minimum +3.
So did they get to keep the goals?
Yes.
So they kept all the stats.
It's a point deduction. It's all.
And New Zealand still got a loss.
Yeah,
right.
It's not. They didn't change. They didn't forfeit the New Zealand match. They didn't forfeit any of these matches.
They just said you don't get the points.
You lose points. That's how soccer often will do it. So it was they started basically at -6.
Right.
And with 2 wins, they've clawed their way back to 0. If they win another, they'll be at 3 points. Either that will be tied for 2nd with Colombia and New Zealand, or Colombia, but goal differential will mean they'll go ahead. Because that's the first tiebreak. It's not even head-to-head, it's goal differential. And Canada's in a great spot for it. If they win, they're minimum +3. And that's Colombia can't catch them. So that should put them through.
Wow.
So we'll see if they could go do that. Yesterday scoring in the 90+ 12th minute. I think it was officially.
It's weird, because the story broke as the tournament was starting. Mm-hmm. I mean, if this breaks a month ago, are they simply thrown out of the tournament?
Well, they probably should have been.
I don't think so, because FIFA. I don't think we've ever really saw that from FIFA. They could have thrown them out of this tournament. They could have just given forfeits. I don't think they want to set the precedent that high for this, because this happens. Like, the thing about people in Canada, they're all out in outrage about how could we do this as a nation. No one in soccer actually cares. The only two countries talking about this are Canada and New Zealand. No one else cares in the soccer world. Like, I'm sure that other teams have done this. Canada's just stupid enough to do it at the Olympics when the security of an Olympics is extremely heightened. Like, why the hell would you try this at the Olympics? That's the most idiotic thing out of all this. But like Didier Drogba, who's like this famous soccer player,
Right.
he was asked by Hario Helwani on CBC, and Drogba just laughed at it. He's like, it's nothing. Like, the soccer world actually doesn't really care about this that much.
What could you actually get as a?
It's small things.
As an advantage
You
from
could have
that.
learned like set pieces. You could have seen like corners and free kicks and learned from that a little bit. But
Things
it's nothing
they're doing
of major.
unique to playing you.
But it's small stuff. It's not a lot. So
why even bother? Like, it's just
because
ridiculous.
sometimes you try for any edge you can get. Why did the New England Patriots do what they did for a number of years potentially? Why did Bill Belichick, who's the greatest coach ever, film walkthrough of the Rams before that Super Bowl, when walkthrough generally isn't that important?
Yeah. One thing that's interesting to me as well is the different culture or standards around different sports for observing an opposing team's practice. I mean, anybody can watch the other team practice or take a morning skate in the NHL.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter.
It's nothing. though.
It's normal.
There's not. You never hear closed practices.
No, I mean, you
Wait
could
till that
sit there
comes.
and record the entire practice. Media can record the entire practice. I mean, there's cameras on the bench a lot of times when the Oilers are skating or the visiting team is skating. And then football has this incredibly high level of paranoia. I remember when I remember I was working at City TV. I went to an Esks practice, and they said the rules are you can shoot from 11:10 to 11:30.
Yes.
That's your window to get footage. So I was shooting in that window. I was getting ISO of one player, and Richie Hall, the head coach of the team, walked up to me and said, "What were you just shooting?" And I was like, "Well, I was getting ISO of that the player I'm doing a story on, or that I'm going to interview." "Okay, you can't shoot the formation or the drill." I was like, "No, I was just getting that player." So you're told, probably JMO at the time, it's known. Okay, this is the time to shoot. I was shooting in that window, and then the head coach of the team still walked up to me and said, What are you doing?"
You even need to have the cameras turned around when you're outside the window, because otherwise the coaches will get mad at you.
Yeah, like they're so
they could be
so
off,
paranoid.
but
That has been such a massive problem with the Elks for a long time, is their the way they deal with the media anyways. I mean, it's an absolute joke that you don't get the proper access that
But that's
you
football
need to
across
get.
the board. If he
Man,
did that in Toronto, there'd be a football coach coming up to him likely at one point saying the exact same thing.
Well, I used to get
coaches
that
are
in high
insane.
school football in Lloyd.
oh, bro.
Oh, there you go.
Don't shoot too much of the practice. Like I remember. Well, the Lloyd teams were used to having us around, and usually if you went to another market, like Vermilion or whatever, they were usually having a good year or a kid. You're profiling a kid. But I remember Lloyd was playing Wainwright in the Wheatland Football League final, and the coach of Wainwright did not want us to come do a story on the team. Like I found out, because I think we were dealing with the principal or somebody, like when to come to practice, and then I found out later, like the coach really was. Now, part of that too was not just filming practice, but also the coaches is when you're dealing with kids that age, they don't want them believing the hype, right? Oh, we were on TV, we must be pretty good, right? So they're so guarded about all that kind of stuff. But yeah, football is this. That's, to me, that's the most paranoid sport. And now, but I get it to some extent, because you might have a trick play. You might have a fake field goal. And I know from Dave and Morley being at practice, there's stuff they see that they don't say, and then they'll do something in a game, and then Morley or Dave would tell me, like, "Oh yeah, like Jones or Cavis, like they told us they were going to run that play." Like, we weren't surprised when that player went in, because we knew it, but we could never tease it up or talk about it, because it's stuff we got sort of
Well,
special
there's an
from the
unwritten
coach.
rule, I think, with certain things with media and stuff, that you don't show trick plays. That's something you don't talk about that one. You let that one just happen, and you don't say anything.
Yeah.
And you let that be. And if it happens in a game, you could say, well, they've been practicing this week or something. But you don't go ahead of time, because the moment you start then saying that, then the football teams will start being like, well, why are we letting media here? And they're going to start shutting it down. So that's like one of those, like, you see trick plays, you see that stuff, you just let it be. And you.
Well, don't they get one closed practice a week?
I think now you can
Still
get
in the CFL?
1 week or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't recall. Well, actually, I don't think the Elks have done it all this year. I don't think I've heard closed practices. The Riders used to do it a lot.
But I mean, this is again, to get back to the state of the media. Who's going besides David Morley? Like what TV is going?
Global's been there this week. I saw a couple times. Slav was there twice this week.
Slav's doing a good job
because Global's finally added more sports again. CTV doesn't send, I think, almost anyone, because TSN's got. I don't know how TSN gets their stuff. I don't know how often TSN goes. Maybe Mahjong will go a little bit right now, because the Oilers are off, and if he doesn't have vacation time, maybe Jerry will be there. Beyond that, Sandor, I think, has been there too a little bit for CP.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. By the way, I got this message from CBC Olympics 10 minutes ago. Canadian Krista Deguchi is competing for Olympic gold in judo right now.
Oh, excellent.
So you can go if you're interested in. I do love the CBC Olympic app, because you get those notifications when a Canadian's about to go for something. So if she wins a gold, or if she ultimately has the silver, we will let you know here on the Hangouts. Got to get to it now. Actually, before I do, quickly, how great is it to no longer work with Troy?
Okay, that's awful to say that. That's all. Who's Troy? Troy Bowler is the game day engineer for Oilers broadcasts. He also does for Cheds. I got to get used to saying that.
That's fine.
Troy's an awesome guy.
Hey, he's terrible.
Yes, but
I shared an office with him.
Oh,
for a number of years.
Yeah,
he was at one desk and I was at the other one. I would come.
Yes.
No, so that's where you're lucky you're getting away from Troy. I'll just go there.
No, Troy's one of those guys, like, you're just so glad to work with somebody like that, because and I talked about him on my last Inside Sports, like, just the true behind the scenes guy that you don't get on the air without. And he was such a good problem solver, and he wasn't one of those guys where it's like, okay, this is how I set things up, live with it. He did what Jack wanted. He did what Bob wanted. He set things up the way I wanted.
He cares about his craft.
Yeah, he cares about his craft.
And he was very
detailed. He cared about the product. I mean, he would sit the entire Oilers game with his fingers on the faders, just in case. Just in case, we need crowd noise. So, Jack's coming in a little hot or something. Like, just so detailed. And, for me, he always had the Studio 99 set up, ready to go. And then I'm upstairs and I got to set up there. So, yes, I will not say anything negative about Troy.
I'll say plenty of negative things about Troy. I have no problem doing that.
Face to face, Troy and I would just, insult each other constantly.
If I had Troy in here, he'd say terrible things about me right now too. So I don't know if he'd ever do this show. I should reach out one day and see if he'd want to. Big baseball guy. I did love Troy. Yeah, we shared an office together. It was one of the. When he left, it was a huge mistake by the old place. We got lucky because the guy replacing him ended up being great for it, but then they treated him like crap, and he left. And that was Lucas from Whale on the Wolf. So the two people that were in that role were fantastic. And radio being radio doesn't, with them, it was one, they don't see what those guys do, and they don't realize how good they are. And they're like, oh, these guys are expendable. Anyone could do that. Well, not really.
No,
not really.
There's some people do it way better than others.
Let's get to Hangout Headlines, which is brought to you by the Ranch Golf and Country Club, offering premier conditions, top-notch service, unmatched value. Book your tee time now, theranchgolf.com. It's going to be a beautiful week to get out to the ranch. Is that where you and your son are playing?
And my wife, at in the Gap before Men's Lake today, if he settles down from his meltdown of only having enough time to play 4 holes and not 9 holes before his eye appointment today. Complete meltdown. He was only going to play 4 holes instead of 9 holes.
Well, I would be upset about that too.
Wow.
To be fair.
I guess, but he's 6. You're 50. you could handle it.
No, I'd be upset. If you were telling me we're playing 4 holes, I'd be like, Murray, why am I going?
Well, it's better than 0. Is it better than 0?
Yes, it's better than 0. How good is he as a 6-year-old?
Well, I don't see many 6-year-olds play golf, but
that's a good point.
He actually hits it pretty darn good.
He wants to play from the golds.
He wants to play from the golds. Yeah, and I'm telling him, no, you're not playing the golds. You're playing the express tees because it's. I mean, the consistency isn't there. But when he hits it, he can hit it 150 yards. But he doesn't hit it. But he's a true golfer already because he gets angry if he hits a bad shot.
Yes, that's the way to go.
So he's he's on
great.
it already.
That's great. He's golfing at a young age because golf is not an easy sport.
No,
as you know very well, and I just feel like you get that swing down as a kid, and you're gonna have that with you until. As long as you golf, you'll always have those fundamentals to fall back on.
Sure.
And the story because you and I hardly knew each other. I'm forgetting his name. The guy at the quarry,
Taylor
that gave me the lessons, and that's why I when we had and plus we had a little deal with them at Ched at the time. But I said, Taylor, here's my problem. When I'm playing poorly, I don't know what to go back to. I don't know, or if I hit a couple bad shots, I don't have that. So this isn't about me trying to be a 2 handicap or drive at 320 yards. This is about me saying okay, I've hit a couple bad shots. What are the 2 or 3 things I just need to make sure I'm doing when I set up that'll maybe get me back on track? So he's going to have that, from a preschool age, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. Even he's been golfing since he's 1 even.
That's incredible. Just having the grip down and all that fundamental stuff.
Well, he doesn't hang on to it properly yet. But, I mean, he's in lessons. He's been in lessons for 3 years and stuff like that. But, I mean, man, it's at that age, the grip nothing needs to be perfect. I mean, you're just trying to get him to enjoy the game and love the game and have some fun. And that's the most important part, for sure.
Canada just won gold in judo
all the time.
Oh,
that's incredible.
First gold medal.
Is that the first one for Canada?
I believe that's our first gold medal.
Wow.
Hey, boss. Am I allowed to go on the green zone in Regina?
Of course.
Okay, good.
Is that with Jamie and I?
Yeah, they want to tape.
Yeah, I was on with him last week.
The green
2 weeks
zone.
ago.
Oh,
one of their
that's
sports
our
radio
riders,
stations there.
yeah.
Of course you can. No problem with that at all.
Make sure you say you're with Edmonton Sports Talk.
You can go almost anywhere. Yeah, you can go almost anywhere.
I could be actually not working media right now. Sorry. Just be difficult.
So, no, we got our first gold of the Olympics. So there we go. That's not Hangout Headlines. Hangout Headlines is the Edmonton Elks.
Woo! I've talked enough, Murray.
I wanted. Yeah, you're the one that said you texted into the post-game show yesterday and said, "I'm angry."
Well, I mean, listen, you and I have been preaching Trey Ford for 2 effing years. And
facts.
It is literally unbelievable when you have arguably the most exciting player in the league sitting on your bench. It's not a small sample size anymore because he played. They were 0-9 last year when he started. Is that correct?
They were 0-8 when he came in. They lost to Winnipeg to go to 0-9.
And then
I thought that was 0-9.
They were 0. I'm pretty sure they were 0-8 when he went in because he was 4-6 as the starter.
You might be right then.
Anyway, sorry.
But you and I talked on the show a year ago about how they need to extend him. They need to make him the face of the team. And
I also want to add, also spend money to improve the team elsewhere because he's not that expensive.
Right. And I don't know, like Chris Jones is now fired. But now, okay, so now we have a new coach and a new GM.
Interims.
And yes, but I mean, you have the most exciting player in the league and you're sitting there, you've screwed up. Chris Jones screwed up by bringing in MBT. And has quarterback play been I mean, he's the 3rd leading passer in the league right now and everything like that. But I mean, it's irrelevant. They're 0-7. And the fans are clamoring for Trey Ford. They want Trey Ford. He's exciting. What went on last night was what we should have been seeing from him as a starting quarterback for the last year and a half. He gets butts in the seats. It's unbelievable that they don't want to play this guy, and it's infuriating. And they're chasing people away from the team. They're chasing people out of the stadium. And as a sponsor, an advertiser of the team, it's just sickening that I've stuck with them as an advertiser and a sponsor of the team through all this garbage, through 7,000 fans going to the game, and you're paying good money to advertise and whatnot, and you're just absolutely chasing people away. You're screwing up by not playing this guy. And now there's even question, well, is he going to play next? Like, man, if he doesn't play next week, I'm already just livid. Like, why do I want to continue to even advertise and sponsor with these guys when they're absolutely making brain dead decisions, chasing fans out of the way that are not going to be there and see the advertising sponsorship that I have and other advertisers have? I mean, it's just, I am so livid and so infuriated that they're just screwing this guy over. He's in his last year's contract. Is he even going to want to sign next year? Because they are clearly not showing any trust and faith in him for no good reasons. I would want to walk if I was him too. And that's just going to, like, I'm so annoyed and frustrated at the whole thing. It just drives me nuts, and I can't stand it. He's so ready to be the starter. He's young and experienced. He's going to make mistakes, and that's okay. It's okay when you're developing a young guy, but look at what he can do. He comes in yesterday, and he dominated. And sure, they had a big lead. Maybe they weren't pressing as hard as they could.
When he had one of those big nice plays with that big run that scrambled to extend the play, Hamilton blitzed.
Yeah,
that wasn't prevent defense. Trey Ford made that
and
big
he can
play
get away from it.
That was a legit Hamilton Ticats defense blitzing him, and he scrambled, escaped like three guys, found the open receiver, got a first down.
Exactly, and that's what people want to see. And I mean, I want to cuss and swear and say a lot of bad things right now, but I'll stop. But
you heard Jay and I were at Century Casino Sports Bar and Lounge, so we weren't at the game. You could hear the boos come through the broadcast very loud and clear.
Oh yeah.
And then when Trey Ford came in, you could hear the excitement from the crowd, and people sitting at Century Casino were getting excited about what they were watching from Trey Ford. This is an exciting quarterback. This is a good young quarterback, and it's. Rip City Step in the Nasty Chat yesterday during the post-game show said Iwanyk victory lap, and it was like, I get to do a victory lap. You get to do a victory lap to a degree. Fans get to do a victory lap, because what we've been saying since this team signed McLeod Bethel Thompson was you went about this season the wrong way. What they should have done after last season was extend Trey Ford, make him the face of the franchise, which is good for business. Mm-hmm. When you could put him on billboards, sell number 2 jerseys, can get some of the casual fans to be excited about this team, you could go do that. Football-wise, while Trey Ford maybe isn't as good of a quarterback as MBT coming into this season, you're developing a younger quarterback to know, can this guy be a starter in this league? Can this guy go out and actually be the face of this team long-term? And with that, because he's not getting $400,000 to $500,000 that McLeod Bethel Thompson's getting from a base salary to incentives, you could have spent and improved the offensive line, which we're seeing once again isn't good enough. You could have went and spent some money on your secondary, which keeps getting decimated and picked apart. You wouldn't have traded Jake Ceresno away, because you wouldn't have needed to bring in Curly Gittens Jr. to be with McLeod Bethel Thompson. And you could have overall built a better team, and maybe you would have seen results. And I do believe that this team was 0-7. Like, would have they had more wins this season with Trey Ford? Potentially not. They might have still been 0-7 with Trey Ford.
Yeah, we'll never know, but I bet you they would be.
But I think people would have seen, at least, I think fans would have been a little more accepting of the fact that, well, you're developing this young guy, and you're trying to see if Trey Ford could be this guy, as opposed to when you bring in McLeod Bethel Thompson, it was, what's to win football games. And the moment you don't win football games, it's, well, I don't care that he's passing really well. Yeah. I don't care that he's moved the ball a little bit. They're not winning.
Exactly.
And then over the last 2 games, he actually hasn't been playing well. And this is the issue. And I don't believe, I'm one of those that doesn't believe Jarius Jackson's going to go to Trey Ford next week still. Because, when he took over the job as the interim coach, we talked about this on the kickoff show yesterday. His immediate was, we got to play 3 quarterbacks. Like, that's how you got to do things. And he goes on, Trey Ford gets 2 series against Ottawa in a very short week. Doesn't get time really with the first team. Then you think, okay, it's a longer week of practice. He'll get a little more time. They'll try to mix him in a little bit more. And what does Jarius Jackson say last week in practice? He goes, they were trying to be fair, but it's MBT. Basically, that's what he said. And find me how many people after halftime went, McLeod Bethel Thompson should stay in. There weren't a lot, I don't think. And the only one that really matters is Jarius Jackson, and he told Tommy on the broadcast, MBT's our guy. We're sticking with him. And what happened with those 2 possessions he got in the third quarter? 2 2-and-outs, and they were minus 5 yards of offense in the third quarter. And they were forced to go to Trey Ford. Jarius Jackson didn't want to go to Trey Ford. He was forced to do it. And I believe he's going to go back to MBT because that's his guy. And for whatever reason, Jarius Jackson, G. Roy Simon, and Chris Jones do not like Trey Ford. They do not trust Trey Ford. Yet, over the last 2.5 seasons, this team has won 8 football games, and 5 are with Trey Ford as the starting quarterback. And I don't understand this. Fans have seen it. A lot of media have seen this. I've been made fun of by our morning boys for how much I talk about Trey Ford. They did the drinking game a few weeks ago. I was here. I don't care that they did that. There was a reason I am the self-proclaimed president of the Trey Ford fan club.
As you should be.
Because he actually is pretty decent on the football field from what we've seen. Can he
better
improve?
than
Yes.
pretty
He
decent.
needs to learn how to think pass a little bit more first, and he needs to work on his accuracy. But yesterday was actually pretty solid. But it's also exciting business-wise. The fans get excited about Trey Ford. So why not play this guy? Like, to me, the rest of this season, he needs to be the starting quarterback. And the only reason you'd maybe pull him is the game's completely out of hand and you just don't want to risk an injury or something at that point. But now I think let's see if Trey Ford can be a starting quarterback in the Canadian Football League. The sad part is they didn't build a team around this, they didn't build a proper team because they brought in MBT, and he might be thrown a little bit to the wolves because that O-line's not good enough. But this is also the thing. O-line's not good enough. I'd rather have a scrambling quarterback than a pocket quarterback.
So that's 2 great points. Trey Ford significantly helps your offensive line issues because he can escape the pressure. And the other thing I want to talk about on the business side, when I was at the game yesterday, I was looking around at all the jerseys that people were wearing. I didn't see one jersey of a player. Oh, sorry, I lied. I saw a Mark Cordy jersey.
I saw an MBT. That's Cordy's
Did
family.
you see it, MBT?
I saw an MBT jersey.
Wow.
Yep.
I haven't been there much.
If they would have signed Trey Ford to an extension like you and I were talking to, you know how many people would have Trey Ford jerseys?
People already have Trey Ford jerseys from last year.
Yeah, like they would
him being the
sell a
starter.
bazillion of them because that's the right decision to make, and they're not making it. And so I don't blow it all up. Get a new GM. We're getting a new owner, so get a new
This
GM.
is a
get a
clean
new
slate
get
for new
everything
ownership.
out of here.
They got to clean up
Get everyone out of
everything
here.
and put everything in place that they want.
And
They're not
sign
coming in
MBT.
taking over any mess. They get to hire a president who gets to hire a GM, who gets to hire a coach, who gets to hire coordinators, who gets to go about this their own way.
and sign. But if I'm the guy that's buying the team, we all know who he is now. At least
I don't think it's ever been. I don't think it's out there.
But you know
I think
what?
only behind the scenes.
It's not a done deal until it's a done deal. But I mean, it's out. Like I know who it is, and I think you know who it is.
Yes.
But you want to know
Dave
what?
Naylor mentioned it too, but not
he
the
should
name.
just go in and say, "Listen, we're not hiring a coach. We're just going to sign." Trey Ford to a 4-year extension right now. He's our starting quarterback, and we're not bringing in a coach or a GM that doesn't want to buy into that because that's what we're doing. Period.
Reid.
Well, they're bad.
Yes,
They're really bad.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
And I just quickly, they don't have a first-round pick this year too.
and
Just throw that out there.
it's shocking to me how poorly this Chris Jones era turned out. Because what was Chris Jones's thing? He finds guys. He did here. He and Hervey together, and he even did in Saskatchewan. That team
Got better every year.
better under him, and they played. His sort of. Like he had that, and as much as I couldn't stand McAdoo, they still had a little bit of that unpredictable style. Like all of a sudden we're going to fake a kick. Like remember in the Grey Cup when we won, they faked a punt. Like he and then he couldn't bring guys in who were good, and I think then he was stubborn with McAdoo, and he was stubborn with some of the player decisions. I think there should be a lot of discussion about Trey Ford. The quarterback play wasn't a problem through the first 4 games, but as you said, they still lost. So, the quarterback maybe sometimes gets too much credit and too much blame. I think Ford should play Saturday. I just think with Ford, I do think it was garbage time yesterday. Despite that blitz and the spectacular plays, it was garbage time.
Sure.
I think from a technical perspective of quarterback play, right now, MBT is better. He reads the field better and he has a quicker release. Now, having said that, he played like crap for a game and a half. And even starting the home loss to Ottawa, he wasn't that good in that game, but they put some stuff together at the end. But I think now it's at the point this season is going to be another non-playoff year because they're going to have to go 8-3 in their final 11 games to do that. They are not good enough to do that. No, they'll probably finish 4-14 again. They might finish 0-18. Who knows? It's still possible.
It's If you don't beat Hamilton, it's one of those like, who are you beating here?
Well, that's the thing. Who are they beating? Like I still don't even really think Ottawa's that good, even though they crushed Calgary and they lost both to Ottawa.
But they beat Edmonton and Calgary in 3 straight weeks.
Yes,
it's
true.
not like
Edmonton hasn't played Winnipeg or Calgary yet.
5
But
games
that's
against
the
those
only
two.
that's the
5
only
games against
path
those
to the
two.
postseason if they somehow win all those games because Winnipeg can't score, and I don't know what to expect.
Trey
from
Ford has
Calgary
many
anymore.
touchdown passes this season as Zach Laros.
Well, that's a good point.
I think it's 3 each.
It's just I get the excitement around Trey Ford, but there are many other problems.
100%.
So, and I said this to Dustin and Lieutenant Eric this morning. I hope the standard now isn't let's just lose exciting games. I mean, they got to win. Mm-hmm. They got to win. And bigger picture here, and I don't know how much I'm going to get into this thing. I may save it for my first week on air of the Reid Wilkins show. This has been a mediocre at best franchise for 20 years. That's
Since
really
06.
how long it's been, guys.
06.
And some people I talked to about this even say since 03.
I struggle with that one.
Because the 05 team was an older team that put it together but didn't host a playoff game. So they've hosted playoff games in 11, 14, and 15. 3 home playoff games in 20 years. Mm-hmm. In a league in which half the teams play a home playoff game, or almost half. There was 8 teams. And
the one defensive 05 I'll have is that if they won the last game of the season, they finished first in the West.
Oh, yeah.
It was all very tight.
Yeah,
and then they lost and they finished third. It was really close, and that defense was unreal.
And I know
so I will
they've
defend that 05 team because it was my favorite team until 15.
And I know the 1 year they were like 6th overall, but 5th in the West, so they missed the playoffs and all that kind of stuff. But where does this all stem from, guys? They haven't had good talent identifiers and talent signers, talent getters, with the exception
14-15.
of 14-15, that was Jones and Hervey together.
Yeah.
You know, like Jones found Walker. I think Jones found McCoyle, you know, and Hervey found some other guys. Hervey made the Riley trade, though Buono was saying, I got to let this guy play somewhere. So look what's happened. Machocha was not a good GM.
Nope.
Not at that time.
Like overall, of course they did some, but body of work was not a good GM. Tillman at that time was not a good GM. Sunderland was. I'm missing some people in there. Well, then it was Hervey. Then it was Sunderland.
Machocha, Tillman, Hervey, Sunderland. CJ.
Yeah,
Christian.
and Sunderland, I'm surprised. I knew while he was there, he wasn't very popular. Like Sunderland was despised by his colleagues and by the alumni.
He was very arrogant.
Yes.
behind closed doors with many things.
So
petty things.
They haven't had a good general manager, and that's now. And what happened around that time in the last 20 years? This salary management system. They don't call it a cap in the CFL.
Well, teams are all over it these past few years.
So
teams are going past it. The Elks don't have the money now to do what they once did, but Winnipeg and Toronto, I think, were 2 teams last year that went over the cap.
So what do you lose, a pick or something like that?
It wasn't a lot. I don't even think it's a pick.
Not
I think
a lot,
it's just a
but these
fine.
teams still
I think you just get fined.
So here's the thing: the S could often outspend teams, especially for Canadian talent, right? Because they had the big stadium, they had the attendance. You have the momentum of winning every year. I mean, the home playoff game used to just be included in your season's tickets, right? So they had all that momentum. Now they've had people who haven't been able to find good talent, who haven't been able to spend money wisely. I mean, you could have had Dimitri Sumpas on your offensive line. You trade the pick for Warren Keane, wasn't that?
No, it was John Comiskey.
Oh, that was okay.
They got the 9th best center in the league for.
Okay, so
Dimitri
anyway, so
Sumpas.
then it was
ninth best center.
It's probably the 9th best center.
So they haven't had good talent identifiers, oddly enough. So then you can't build the culture of winning. People want to go there. I mean, like the Riders used to be terrible year after year after year. No one wanted to go play there. Then all of a sudden now it's like, I can play in this town that's kind of like this college town I played in or where I played high school. And now they got the new stadium, right? So it gets to be more of a destination. But it's been, guys, it's been kind of a mediocre / lousy franchise for 20 years.
So one thing, quickly, straightforward on the it was garbage time. The one thing I will say to that is I don't think MBT scores 3 touchdowns.
No.
In 3 drives in the fourth quarter.
No.
Again, that's the impressive part to me of Trey Ford is that he went 3 for 3. If he only scored 1 touchdown in garbage time, I would be more just it's garbage time. He went 3 for 3. And at some point, I think the Ticats even wanted okay, we got to stop this guy in here. They challenged the play. There was a little bit of character. Yes, I get. I'm not going to completely think that it's completely perfect. And this is who Trey Ford is going to be every single game now moving forward. But I go MBT was there. They're not going 3 for 3, and that's where I'm impressed by Trey Ford is that he went out there for 3 drives in that fourth. And the last drive of MBT, what was the score at that time? I think it was 38-3 or something like that. He couldn't even get a first down. You can't tell me that the Hamilton defense was fully trying then, and then the moment Trey Ford came in, they completely stopped playing. MBT wasn't getting it done.
No, fair.
To the roster, but this is where Chris Jones. To me, what happened here? Because I think you said, or one, I can't remember which now said it. Don't know what happened with Chris Jones' his time here in Edmonton. To me, what the defining moment of this second stint is arrogance, where there is a lot of problems with this team that could have been addressed in the offseason if, to me, fans being able to point out that if you go with Trey Ford, it's not only about Trey Ford, it's the fact that you could spend money and build this team better. The fans seeing that, and Chris Jones not. Chris Jones not seeing that over the last number of years, he needs to address his offensive line. Hardrick goes to Saskatchewan. There was other free agent offensive linemen this past summer. He chooses to get none of them. He chooses to go you stick with the youth in the secondary, not bring in, any veterans. He chooses to get rid of Jake Serezna and go with complete youth on the defensive line because he's Chris Jones and he knows how to find defensive linemen. And then adds another receiver when this team didn't need receivers. And Curly Gittins has been good for this team. I'm not trying to criticize him, but it wasn't necessary for this team. The roster construction of Chris Jones was extremely poor. Why? Because of his arrogance of, I'm not playing Trey Ford. I'm using with MBT. I'm going to spend the money on this position, and I will show all of you. And that's what happened.
No, I think there is some of that. And I mean, even, with the, I don't even know how much this is public or not, but the players didn't know when they practiced every day. They showed
every
up.
day. It would be
they showed
you never
up.
knew.
Yeah, it's just a weird way to.
Well, he had too much on his plate, and when he was here the last time, the players would always tell me that the structure that he had and the organization that he had with his defense was unbelievable. And now that he's wearing all these hats, he didn't have time to do that. It was unorganized. There was no structure. You just can't wear as many hats as he did and be successful at any of it, and he wasn't. And
that's why I'm not a fan of Giroy moving forward as a GM of this team, because I think he had to be involved quite a bit with the movements, because Chris Jones does still at times have to not do stuff as a GM because he's got to focus as a head coach, and that stuff then falls on Giroy, and he's helped build this team, which is a very poorly constructed team. The Elks might go winless this season. They don't have a first-round pick this year.
Which is weird because they should be better.
Because they used it in a supplemental draft this year to get another receiver. Of all the positions this team doesn't need is another Canadian receiver type thing. And conflicting reports. Dusty came storming in here one day saying he's heard that they're really high on him. It's going to be great. And then later that day he was told, and maybe not as that high. But they have Gavin Cobb. They got Hergy Mayala. They have Curly Gittins Jr. I know the CFL draft isn't sexy, but teams can be won from a CFL draft, especially getting good Canadian offensive linemen there and having a first-round pick, even if you want to just go trade it for an asset of some other point. They don't have a first-round pick this year, and they might have the first overall pick.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the Chris Jones, G-Roy Simon of this team is, why did you go get another receiver on this team? We haven't even seen that this receiver take to the field yet. What was the rationale behind this? We absolutely need to get this guy because we can't let anyone else have him, because if he goes next year, he's going to be a top pick. This team doesn't need more receivers. The O-line is poor, and you need other Canadians in other spots.
Well, we had the first overall pick this past season, and it's not that he's come in and been a massive game breaker and a difference maker.
Well,
for the team
one of the
either,
reasons
right?
they will go draft Joel DeBlanco is because he could play right away.
Yeah.
Well, he hasn't played in the defense. He's been special teams, but he was supposed to be able to just slot in and start. That's why they went with an older guy, because this guy has the experience, and he's going to, every team would have won him, but he can slot right in. And now I know they have Niles Morgan in the middle linebacker spot. They can go to the will linebacker spot, the weak side linebacker, and start him there, but they chose not to. So, Chris Jones's talent, or the eye to your point of identifying talent, with the Canadians has been extremely poor. Enoch McConzo was a first-round pick from a couple years ago with Trey Ford. Well, he's in Hamilton now because they released him this year. They soured on Trey Ford for whatever reason. And
okay, well, I actually think he probably drafted Trey Ford to be a slot back.
he did going into year 2. Year 1, they actually liked him as a quarterback, it seemed. They went to him in game 1 because it wasn't going well with Nick Arbuckle. They then started him in Hamilton and got that win that season. Then he got hurt. They went against Calgary. He broke his collarbone. And then it soured the relationship because they wanted him to be not a quarterback anymore. I don't know why that changed from year 1 to year 2, but at some point between year 1 and year 2, Chris Jones and Jory Simon didn't want him to be a quarterback. And they did want him to be a quarterback to start. I will defend them part on that, but I don't know why they went against that. And Trey Ford is, I'm a quarterback.
Okay,
and
but that's the question, though, guys. I still think we have to have some level of respect for Chris Jones and Jarius Jackson and even McAdoo as football people who have seen a lot of players. So I think the answer to the question is not they just don't like Trey Ford. They're picking on him. So why have they continually not played him as much as fans would like? So what do you actually think the answer is from a football perspective?
They don't want him to be. They don't think he's a quarterback.
I think that they think his release is not quick enough. I think they think is and then that ties into arm strength, and I think that they think he will not spend enough time reading the field, and that he'll just take off. So, but I know people are listening and saying, but that's what makes him good, is that first or second read's not there, he runs and creates chaos. But I think from their perspective, that's what they're saying. That's why they wanted the 6'5" Taylor Cornelius to play. And
who they didn't like in year 1. Because year 1, they had him and they threw him on the practice roster and for week 1 because they like Nick Arbuckle better. Where I'll go with that is, 1, okay, he's through 1 year. You don't like that. You're the QB coach. You're the OC. You're the head coach. Coach him. Coach him.
Right.
That's why you draft him. Coach him to be a QB. Don't throw him away in year 1. You know, part of this, I think one of the things was that they weren't happy was also that he went and he did, I think, between year 1 and year 2, some mini camp, in the NFL.
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't think they liked that. And that kind of soured it. But like to everything you say, sure, they might not like some of his mechanics. Then work with him. Coach him up.
Sure.
Teach him how to do
I agree
and
with
go
that
way. So that's where I get frustrated with them. Is it was just, okay, year 1 happens. They might not like some things, and it's immediate. Play a different position. As opposed to, did they tell a lot of other players to do that? Did they go that way? Like Jarius Jackson, you're the quarterback coach at that time. Work with him. Coach him. And then in the end, over the 2 seasons prior, they won 5 games with Trey Ford, 4 last season. The only reason that group has a job coming into 2024 with this franchise is because of Trey Ford. And instead of, maybe going, well, let's see what, let's go with this guy, the one the fans want. Let's develop and work with this guy because he could win football games, clearly. Maybe not in the way we'd like. Maybe we just need to work with him on that. They instead slap their fans in the face and say, screw you, we'll show you. And they're 0-7.
Yeah, that's fair. And first of all, I should say this. I think Ford should play, and I think he's tantalizing. I just don't think the answer to the question is why has Trey Ford not played more is that they're picking on him.
I don't think they're picking on him. I don't think they like him as a quarterback.
Maybe they've undercoached him or not given him enough opportunity. I mean, clearly the staff has made a lot of mistakes. But I'm just trying to think. Like, I always try to think, okay, why are they making that decision? And I may not agree with it, and I don't expect people to agree, but I always try to think, okay, what are they thinking? So I think that's what they're thinking. I think that's what Jones thought. Cornelius, NCAA, tall, arm strength, can move a little bit. I think that's why they were stubborn with Cornelius, right? Now, again, McAdoo was a huge problem with this. So I didn't like McAdoo's play calling in 14-15. And I think, thank God, Riley said, we're running some plays I like too.
He changed at the line.
We're throwing deep to Darrell. We're not doing all 3-yard curls. So that's, to me, that's why they've been overlooking Ford. And I agree. You got to coach him. You got to give him opportunities. And he should have been getting plays in games from week 1 this year.
But and that's to me why it says they don't like him. That's where I go to. Because anyone else would have said, and anyone that was defending the MBT signing this year is like, absolutely, you still find ways to mix Trey Ford into the offense. But he wasn't.
No.
And that's because they're not. I will stand with the saying of they don't like Trey Ford in this. And it's like Jay was a guy that was big on the MBT. He said you got to mix him. Like, why wouldn't you use the asset that is Trey Ford? And not in a gimmicky way. I know Chris Jones came out a couple of weeks ago when he said Trey Ford turned it down. Just threw his quarterback under the bus when Trey Ford has said nothing this season. That's because Trey Ford doesn't want to be a gimmicky quarterback. He wants to be used as a quarterback in that sense. So the one thing on Chris Jones, though, too, like as well as he turned Saskatchewan around and was improving, the one thing he never did in Saskatchewan and the one thing he never did in Edmonton was identify a quarterback.
Yes.
That was the position. And I'll go back. Year one, he identified Nick Arbuckle better than Taylor Cornelius. Didn't work in year one. Nick Arbuckle was traded by week 4. Then all of a sudden he likes Taylor Cornelius last year, and he went too far with Taylor Cornelius. But he has always identified the quarterback wrong. And this year now he went, MBT's going to win me football games, not Trey Ford. And in the end, ultimately, based on the results, he got it wrong.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I do fully agree with that. And the year Toronto won the Grey Cup, they beat Saskatchewan, crossed over. I think it was that year they started like 1-6. It was Jones' second year. I think they started 1-6 or 2-6 and were 8-10. I think crossed over. I can't remember who they beat in the East semi. That was the year Ricky had to convert a third down for Toronto to win at the end of the game. But even in that West final, it was Brandon Bridge. God, was Glenn? No, Glenn wasn't still playing. But yeah, they had a really good team, but it was like, who's going to be the quarterback? And in the East final, they were still like changing quarterbacks in the fourth quarter because neither guy could really get going, which is weird to me because most guys build around the quarterback, and Jones seemed to be like, I'm going to build around a defense and speed and length and all that kind of stuff, and then maybe put in the quarterback. But again, I think that's some arrogance. I think that's, maybe it worked for him or in other places or the defensive background that he had. But that's a great comment about how, and they had Riley, thankfully, but he never really was able to bring in a good quarterback and develop him.
So a couple of points I'll make on some of those comments you guys were having. I had a relationship with Chris Jones, and he flat out said to my face one day, Taylor Cornelius can't play quarterback. He doesn't know what jersey color to throw the ball to, but yet he played him over Trey Ford, which made absolutely no sense to me. And then 2 years ago, I was asking a whole whack of the players when I was clamoring for Trey Ford 2 years ago, and they were all saying to me, he's fresh out of college. He's never been hit by a professional football player before. The players were telling me they don't think he's going to be durable. He's not going to be able to handle getting hit by these players. So, I don't know how his body composition and his weight has maybe changed over the last couple of years, but he is getting hit by professional football players now. He did have that one injury.
Broken collarbone year 1.
Yeah, he did take a pretty big hit yesterday, and he bounced right up and continued to play well after that. So, he is a professional player now. He hopefully has been in the weight room and gotten bigger and stronger so he can...
His face looks fuller yesterday
handle the quality of hits that he's going to take in his position. And you got it's just time.
Well, he played 10 games last year then, or was it 9 games? I think he went 4-6, then 4-6.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 10 games.
Yeah.
He made it healthy through 10 games.
Yeah.
I know there's a worry about him getting injured and stuff. And look, when it comes to any scrambling quarterback, you got to be smart, getting your body down, getting out of bounds, not taking hits, and that's something you'll have to keep learning because you don't want to take those unnecessary hits.
Exactly.
But he went through 10 games last year and played all 10. Started and finished them.
Exactly.
So I'm not as worried about the injury factor of Trey Ford moving forward. I just want to see what he can do. It's time. And the problem, the fear I have though is this team isn't well built, and now there's this. He has to come in and save the season for a second straight year.
Yeah.
And there's just that extra pressure that I don't think is fair to him fully. He's a professional athlete. I get that. Go out there and win games. But I would have loved to have seen what this team could have been if they built around Trey Ford in the offseason with that extra money spent everywhere else and what could have happened. Now we can't go do that. But now it's like, look, he still has a lot to learn as a quarterback. He's not a perfect quarterback. And there's going to be growing pains, and there's going to be games where he's not going to be particularly great. There's going to be a stretch of drives that are going to be bad, like we saw with MBT yesterday. But there's got to be some extra patience with him because he's that younger quarterback.
Well, who is a flawless quarterback in the CFL right now? I don't know that there is one.
DA would be the closest, but he has his flaws. He throws interceptions.
Yeah,
at bad times sometimes. He tries to force one in, and it's a bad interception.
There's no perfect quarterback.
Kolaros over the last couple of years would have been the closest. Yeah. I would have thrown him. This year he's not been good. I don't like why he's not playing. He's an idiot for many reasons, but Chad Kelly's a pretty solid overall quarterback.
Yes, he is.
And maybe Nathan Rourke coming back to the Canadian Football League.
Yeah, wouldn't that be something?
Waiver wires should be announced soon. somewhere here.
Is he going to come back this year? He'll
Well,
stay down there
so
another
if
year,
he
won't
doesn't get claimed by waivers, he can go sign anywhere. And the question is now, if you're Nathan Rourke, do you want to jump on a plastic roster somewhere, or
Again,
do you
yeah.
want to start playing?
Right.
What's his age?
26 was
Yeah,
it?
he's
I think it
still
was.
Still
young.
pretty young, yeah.
The question
He
I have
could
is,
play
where does he
15
go?
years in the CFL.
I don't see, like, to me, I don't. He's a BC Lion. As good as VA's with that team, like, I think VA finishes this year. I think if anything, there's going to be an agreement with Doman and Rourke, which is you'll be the quarterback next year. Don't sign anywhere. I'll give you the money,
Right.
and they'll move on from VA after this
Yeah.
season because Rourke's younger, and they sold the Rourke jerseys, and I don't think they'll find a way to overpay him in different ways. Is my prediction. Like, I know some people say, what about Edmonton? Which would be great. Like, if you're Edmonton, I think you go try for Nathan Rourke.
Sure.
But I don't see why he wouldn't go back to BC.
Yeah, it probably makes the most logical sense, but who knows? Maybe he didn't necessarily enjoy his time there. I don't see why he wouldn't have, but yeah, you just never know.
Luke is saying the year that you're thinking of with Chris Jones, they had Collaros, but was hurt due to concussion. He was in and out, thus having to play bridge that season, and Collaros would have got hurt early in that season. But I will say at that time of Collaros, we didn't think he was that good anymore. Like, there was a lot of question marks of Zach Collaros, and that's a reason why he ultimately was in Toronto, didn't play, and then was traded to Winnipeg, and no one wanted him.
Right.
You know, he was really good in Hamilton for a number of years. Then concussions.
I've always liked him.
Concussion issues were a problem for a number of years, including those years in Saskatchewan, but he wasn't solid there, and they ultimately still moved on from Zach Collaros, and he went to Toronto, and then he ultimately ended up in Winnipeg. So if I'm going to, in the end, if you're going to credit Chris Jones for having Zach Collaros on the roster, then you're also going to blame him for trading away Zach Collaros. That he got rid of Zach Collaros and didn't stick with him.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the timing of all those seasons. But I'm trying to remember who played in that East final. I can't remember who else was on the Riders roster. Because that would have been 2017, right? That's when the Argos won?
I think so. 2017, great.
Your guys' memories of this stuff is
Yeah,
unbelievable.
not as good as they used to
27-24
be.
they won. So I'll have to go to the Argos season from that year. They were 9-9 that season. Postseason, they took on Saskatchewan on the Sunday. Will the CFL have any real stats for this? Oh, they might.
Trying to look up.
No, they don't have. They just have QB. They don't.
It's amazing
have
that
actual
you can't
Oh,
find
boy.
anything.
But if you do, they have their roster here.
Saskatchewan Roughriders 2017 season team.
2017.
Yeah, Kevin Glenn. Their
Kevin Glenn.
quarterbacks were VA, Bridge, and Glenn. So it was Glenn and Bridge were still coming in and out. I think Collaros was already gone at that point, wasn't he?
Well, he would have been hurt at the beginning of the season.
Or was he not?
Like, because it was Simone Lawrence with a dirty hit early in that season. I think it would have been that season.
Yeah. Anyway,
But in the end, they let VA go.
but that
He let
so
VA
that
go.
year.
You could say that if you want to go with Chris Jones and you want to give him credit for the
Oh no, the
Collaros.
Riders were they started 2-4 and then they were 5-4. Well, they were 10-8 that year, but they were still fourth in the West. So Calgary was 13-4-1. Winnipeg and Edmonton were 12-6. Saskatchewan was 10-8. BC was out at 7-11.
That was the year Jason Moss went for that field goal.
How fun would it be to be 12-6 though? I mean, it feels like
Murray,
That's
Well,
wouldn't
that's
it
the
be
thing,
great
yeah,
to be?
it's just
Wouldn't it be
right now,
great to see 9-9? Let's say
Well,
500.
yeah, exactly.
You know,
Well,
Yeah.
that's the sad part, and I still look at last year as such a missed opportunity because 7 wins would have got him in the playoffs.
yeah.
And if they don't have McAdoo, I mean, I honestly think Cornelius, despite what Chris Jones told you, I think even Cornelius with Jarius Jackson calling plays
that's what Dusty
might
says.
have won some games last year.
where's
McAdoo was such a disaster.
Where's
Here's the issue.
Cornelius
I know,
now, though?
I know.
Well,
He's
he was
nowhere.
supposed
He's
to be
nowhere.
BC. I thought it's a short yardage guy, but I'd have to go look. He must be
Yeah.
hurt or something. I will say this with Taylor Cornelius. When he did his best was when he moved. When he was running around, and because he actually was rather quick.
Yeah.
And there were some games he would run for a lot of yards. And when he was willing to run out of the pocket, that's when things opened up that even when he stayed in the pocket, he could hit his
Yeah.
guys. It was the games they lost that he didn't move. And I don't know if that was Jarius Jackson or if Taylor Cornelius just didn't like running. Because I remember last year before the start at Fan Day, I asked Taylor Cornelius about his running, and he kind of hesitated on that and was just like, oh, I'm kind of just trying to throw. It's like he didn't want to run at all, even though that was when he was at his best.
Yeah. Well, I think his confidence got affected. That spleen injury he had was pretty bad. So I think that affected him as a person too, as well as because he hurt the spleen late in
2021. Because that was the year with Elizondo, if I'm not mistaken, the last year.
Okay.
And then that was going into 22.
I think it was late in 22 he got a spleen injury, wasn't it?
Was it 22?
Because then, because he missed the end of 22.
You're right.
And
then
last
did
year,
play
right,
one
and then
game or
last year
something
he was awful. But I think that, and again, the playbook with McAdoo was just so unimaginative.
Yeah, it was boring. Well, we can't talk about that game yesterday without Beatty's short kick. What the hell was that? A balk and then a dribble at 4 yards? What the heck was that? Was that one of those trick plays that they?
Although he had a. I just remembered he had an onside attempt earlier this season. And it was wonderful.
He crossed over his left leg behind his right. Yes.
I don't know what's up with Beatty. I will say this: it didn't cost them points because it's very hard to get an onside kick, and Hamilton Zoddy would have probably got that ball anyways.
And then they tried lobbing it to the next level, but
he balked on the first one to totally let everyone on the planet know exactly what was going to happen, and then he dribbles it 4 yards. Like,
you know
was
what?
Just a joke.
Well, he's been a bust this year. Leak hasn't exactly done much with the return game. I'm excited to now maybe see what he could do running if Kevin Brown is hurt. MBT hasn't won them football games. A lot of the big moves Chris Jones made this offseason, and I was right about the MBT side of that. I was wrong about Beatty and Leak. I thought the special teams would take a massive step forward, but most notably because of Beatty. It has not.
Beatty did make his field goals yesterday, but that kick was...
That short kick, in hindsight, but this is the thing you need... and I also think the Elks, they have a lot of players who make poor decisions and take poor penalties, and that all comes to how do you play under pressure. When Beatty balked that kick, he should have touched the ball, because then isn't it a re-kick? As opposed to Hamilton waiting for Hamilton to drop on it and they get the field position? Or could have they taken it there anyway? I think then it's a penalty for illegal touching and it's a re-kick.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Well, I think they could probably decline an illegal touching.
But then wouldn't you leave them wouldn't Edmonton get the ball then if Hamilton declined it? I don't know. Maybe Hamilton could just take it where it was illegally touched. I'm not sure of the rule.
Want to get to Road Warriors, which is brought to you by AccuSteel Heavy Haul Trailers, custom manufacturing of heavy haul trailers for mining, oil and gas equipment, highway transportation, trusted by the leaders in the heavy transport industry. Get on the road with peace of mind for your large loads. AccuSteel.ca. Just want to update people on what's going on the road out in France. France, as Tommy would say, France is up on Canada 63-44 in women's basketball with 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter out there. The Canadian men with a big win on Saturday. That was what I find fascinating about the standings of basketball too. It's like you get a point for losing.
Really?
Yeah, like the standings, men's basketball, Canada and Australia both lead Group A with 2 points at 1-0. Spain and Greece both 0-1 have 1 point.
So there's no forfeit or is
participation?
I'm so fascinated by this in that, like, why didn't they just go to 1 point for a win and no points for a loss or something? But they give 2 for a win and 1 for a loss.
There must be some zero point.
The moment the game starts, you get a point, and then you're battling for a point or something.
If you lose within a certain number of points, I get a point.
I'd have to go find out. Like I meant to go actually read into that, but it's weird. Like it's just so weird to me that everyone has a point, but 6 teams in the 3 groups all have losses. They all have at least a point. As for the 3x3, the Canadian women, people were saying earlier that they play tomorrow.
It's tomorrow.
So the sisters will be out there tomorrow.
What's the date today? I'm so out of the loop.
July 29th.
Okay, right.
And it's also Monday. I don't know.
I did know it was Monday. Yeah, the actual day. The date. I'm not sure about.
Retirement is.
Retirement practice is going well.
It's going well. Yeah, that's good. You're relaxed. You're just letting loose, letting go.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, perfect.
It's good. So what do I expect from Ponoka now? I don't know if you know this, but I'll maybe tell you a story. Because I've had some foot issues. I played 1 round of golf last year.
Okay.
Because you know how much I was playing there for a while. I was getting out to your place. I was playing Riverside a lot, going around. Mm-hmm. What do I expect from Ponoka tomorrow or on Wednesday?
Well, I used to live there. I was an assistant pro at Wolf Creek a bazillion years ago. And so I played that course a lot. Haven't played there much in the last 10 years, but it's a really good golf course. Like for a small, like in that central Alberta, there is so many good golf courses in those towns. Ponoka, Lacombe, Innisfail, Olds, Sundre. I mean, there's so many good golf courses. But yeah, kind of what you see is what you get. Greens can be a little tricky. Lots of trees. I mean, it's just a good layout. You're gonna have fun. It's a good golf course. You're gonna come out, walk off of that golf course, and go, huh. Small town Alberta, that's pretty darn good.
All right, so you mentioned the greens being a little tricky, and I looked on their website and they said undulating greens, which whatever. I don't, even as a complete, like not very good golfer, I don't mind, having to read a green. I don't mind. Like I played Trestle Creek a few years ago, and it's too much. The greens have like 4 breaks in them. I don't mind. I don't mind the layout, and it's close to where I grew up near Evansburg, so soft spot for it. So you as an excellent golfer, when you're putting, of course you would love to make every putt, but are you over every putt with mentality of I got to get this to go in, or are you more of the mentality of I need a tap in after this putt?
Yeah, you're absolutely trying not to 3-putt. So you're getting like you're thinking of a 2-foot circle around the hole, and you're trying to get into that because hopefully you're with good enough friends that are just going to give you those 2-footers. Right. But you're not going to miss 2-footers very often. So if you have a little 2-foot circle around that's kind of your goal. Get it within 2 feet, and that's on longer putts. If I'm say 10, 12 feet and under, I'm hoping to make it. But anything outside of that, you're not expecting to make it. You're just trying to get it within that 2-foot circle, and it's a good putt. You want to avoid 3 putts. Sure.
Well, that's what I find so interesting about golf. I love the mental side of the game, even as I'm basically an 18 handicap. Well, now having hardly played for a couple of years, I may be a 30 tomorrow on Wednesday, or whatever. But so I love the mental side of it, and how much of the game is just even playing with your buddies, and the social experience of it. But I still like to play as well as I can. When you step over the ball, like those seconds to take a deep breath, and also think about, okay, what do I not want to do? Like, let's hit the hero shot. Let's not hit the hero shot. Let's
think
keep
like
the ball
that.
in play. But of knowing where the trouble is, right?
Yeah.
Like, I guess what I'm talking about is not still thinking about a positive shot, but also giving it that assessment. It's like, okay, you know what? I got a 5% chance of making that shot.
Yeah.
I got a 95% chance of winding up in the deep rough.
Yeah.
I got a 80% chance of making this shot and still giving myself a chance for a good score.
So ultimately what I would suggest as an 18 type handicap, especially like on your approach shots, don't go flag hunting.
Right.
Just hit the ball in the middle of the green.
Yeah.
And, if the pin's tucked on the right-hand side, don't try to hit it there, because if you hit it at it and your ball goes to the right a little bit, you might be in a bunker, you might be a short side chip. That's not going to be fun, and that's going to elevate your score to numbers that you don't really want. So just hit it in the middle of the green and get up there. If you make a putt, great. If you 2-putt, perfect. That's what I would. Don't try to bite off more than you can chew, and just get it in the middle of the green, get your 2-putt, and get out of there. Yeah. That's what I would really say would be some good advice. And another thing too, yardages. Like if there's a number that you are really good from, say it's 150 yards, right. You're dialed in from 150 yards. But those 120 yard shots, maybe you're not as good at. If you're a little longer than that, you're not as good at. Try to hit to that yardage. So if the hole is 320 yards, don't hit your driver.
Right.
Hit your club that's 170, that's going to get you to 150 yards because you're dialed in from 150 yards. So in a game of golf, if you have maybe 10 150-yard shots over the round, which is your best yardage, you're probably going to score pretty well, aren't you?
Yeah, that's what I love. And that's the thing, too. Like, so much about golf is when you see the guys on TV, well, he hit it 350. But most of us are never going to do that. So it's like you said, find the yardages where you're going to hit comfortable shots and give yourself a shot. I remember hearing this, and you may correct me if I am not remembering this properly, but I thought I heard a commentator once many years ago say that Jack Nicklaus would play the holes backwards. Okay, where do I want to putt from? Okay, I want to putt from this spot on the green. Yeah. So how do I want to? So he'd think, okay, that's where I want to be on the green.
Yeah.
How do I get there from an approach? Yeah. Then how do I get to that spot off the tee? As opposed to like, okay, I just want to drive it as far as I can. Yeah. Like that's a great way to put it. Like get it to your comfortable yardages.
Exactly. Now, when you're just playing a regular everyday round of golf, you don't know where the pin is or what the slopes are of the green. So the general in a PGA Tour tournament, sure, you're going to have that information, but just an everyday round of golf, you wouldn't do that. So I would, just stick to that comfortable, hit it to that comfortable yardage where you're best. Aim for the middle of the green. Just try to keep the game simple.
Yeah.
We only have a couple of minutes left, but I want to just get to one more thing here. And we've always seen the devastation of Jasper. Reminder: Feds and province matching all donations to the Canadian Red Cross. You were in Jasper for the evacuation. What was that like being in Jasper as everything was happening?
Yeah, it was an unbelievable day that I wish I didn't have to live and don't want to live through again. My family traveled up last Monday morning. It was to celebrate my wife's parents' 55th wedding anniversary. And we got to JPL at noon, dropped off all of our luggage, and we drove out to Moline Lake, had lunch at Moline Lake around 1:30. There's no building at Moline Lake that still exists. I mean, they're all burned down. So that's kind of surreal to know that we were, probably one of the last people that had lunch there. I mean, it was busy. There was a lot of other people there. But then got back to the hotel. Our room wasn't ready, so I was supposed to be ready at 4. So we had a drink in the lounge, get to our room at 5, had some supper, and we could tell some things were off. The power went out in the hotel, then it came back on, then it went off, then it came back on. Like, this is a little weird. And then it was smoky all day because of fires that were out. We knew we were in Fort McMurray. Yep. We knew we were in BC. Then we saw helicopters with buckets, and I'm like, there's a fire pretty close to us. I said to everyone when we were having lunch, but we still didn't really think anything of it. Then it was a long day. We traveled all day and whatnot, so we were ready for bed. We were in bed at just before 10 o'clock. My wife says, just go into Luke's room, make sure Luke's asleep, and then all's good. And so I go to his room, see that he's asleep. I go to turn around and I hear all of our phones are just blowing up with the alert. And so I look at my phone and it says Jasper is evacuated. And I'm like, well, okay, well, I'm not worried about it because we're not in Jasper. We're at Jasper Park Lodge. That's quite a ways away. And so I said, I'm not going anywhere. So I actually went back to bed. My wife was, oh, this isn't good. So she phones the front desk and says, no, you guys got to get out of here now. And I'm still like, I don't know. So I'm going to go outside and see what's going on. So I go outside and it's bedlam. Everyone's just chucking stuff in cars. I'm like, okay, we got to get out of here, guys. So all the highways were closed. So they told us we had to go towards BC. So we traveled towards BC. We traveled a whopping 7 kilometers in 5 hours.
Oh, wow.
And just outside of BC, I was falling asleep in the car. I couldn't stay. I kept getting out of my car in the delays before we could move another 20 feet and stuff like that. And I mean, it was snowing ashes on us, but I still need to get out of my car and just kind of move around and whatnot. But people were freaking out because the messaging that we all heard from the beginning was the fire's going to hit the town in 5 hours. Well, we're on this highway stuck right beside Jasper, and people are freaking out, and I'm like, listen, there's no fire that close to us because you'd see an orange haze above us, so I mean, we're okay here. And anyways, eventually I didn't even know there was a second entrance to Jasper at the back on the kind of the west side. There's a light there, and finally we got to the light 5 hours later, and they said, where do you guys want to go? And I said, well, from Edmonton, we'd like to go to Edmonton. So they said, okay, there was a storm while we were there too. It was like poured rain, thunder, and lightning like crazy. So it rained for about 45 minutes in that 5 hours that we're in that stretch. And we think that might have subsided the fire a little bit on that highway back towards Edmonton that they let us go through. So they said they're doing escorted convoys of vehicles. So we were in a convoy eventually, again, another long wait of about 30 cars with an emergency vehicle in the front, emergency vehicle in the middle, and emergency vehicle at the end. And it was one of the craziest, most surreal things I've ever seen. About a 10-kilometer drive with fires on both sides of the road, like right beside us, like right on the road. We're driving right through it. And it was just crazy experience. And so we ended up getting through that, and the emergency vehicles peeled off to go take the next convoy of vehicles. And we got to Hinton, and it would have been around 3 in the morning, and thought, well, let's try to get a hotel room. So we get to the first hotel, and they said, you're not getting a hotel in Hinton. So we're like, okay, well, let's try to get to Edson. So we get to Edson, and by now it's like 5:30 in the morning. I'm like, we just got to keep
go.
We're exhausted.
Might as well
we
finish
just
this.
Keep going. And eventually we got home at 8 in the morning, but that was just a crazy day. And now we here in the everything 35 or whatever 30% of Jasper is gone. A ton of damage at GPL on the golf course. A few buildings, but not a lot of buildings. It sounds like, but a lot of
structurally, it seems like they made off pretty decent,
pretty well. Yeah. So I've seen one picture of the 16th hole at Jasper, which is just devastating. A lot of the golf course looks like that. I mean, they got a long road ahead of them to get back to, but just like the floods that happened in Kananaskis, they're going to rebuild Jasper and the golf course at Jasper Park Lodge, and they'll be back and hopefully better than ever. But just devastating. I mean, we lost a vacation. I say this to people all the time. Like, it sucks. We lost a vacation, but people have lost their homes. They've lost their livelihoods. Yeah. So losing our vacation for us, like, no big deal. We can handle that. I mean, so I feel for everybody that's affected. I was supposed to have the head pro from Jasper on my show yesterday. I still carried on. The second segment is me talking about Jasper and my experience there and about the golf course and some of the history of the course and whatnot. But Troy Mills told me, he said, I can't come on the show for obvious reasons, but one of the reasons is I'd probably just cry through the whole segment. So it's just devastating for the people that live there and the way it's impacted them. So it's just hearts and thoughts and just go out to them all, and it's just a tough situation.
Once again, Alberta, the province, the feds matching all donations, so every dollar donated becomes $3 to the Canadian Red Cross. Reid, welcome. Get used to
Thank you very
seeing
much.
us all here.
Very excited.
You're going to have to deal with that. The Reid Wilkins Show with Jay Milne coming this fall, right here in Edmonton Sports Talk from 3 until 6. And, of course, the VIP Golf Show on Sundays from 8 until 10. You can catch yesterday's show on our audio stream. We'll have the replay tomorrow at 5 o'clock, or you can head to our website, edmontonsportstalk.com, click on the show, and you can watch it right there. A wonderful show from yesterday that you were very excited about.
It was a good show yesterday, for sure.
Thank you to everyone for tuning in to the EST Hangout, presented by Two Hoots. Up next, it is the Lock Shop with Dusty and Huss, and then at noon is the Oil Stream with Dusty. That's all to come here on EdmontonSportsTalk.com. Tune in iHeartRadio as well as on YouTube. On behalf of Reid, Murray, I'm Matt. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. Lock Shop in just a few minutes. Don't go anywhere.
Let's go. There you go, right in front of the camera.
First-time guest, long-time listener, fan of the original draft commissioner.
Welcome to the EST Hangout presented by White Claw Hard Seltzer. The difference is clear. Matt Iwanyk, Tom Zola with here. Joining us today